Okay, so welcome to another segment of The Left Wing. My name is Desmond Price, the host of the Independent Thought podcast. I'm also joined here today with my co-host, John Cooper, the host of Counterpoint Politics. Our guests for this segment are Chuck Cora, the host of Appalachia, and Sock, as he's going now by, our friend from the Twitch streaming world. We are talking about Montana becoming the first state in America to ban TikTok. And so before we kind of get into the ethicalness of banning TikTok, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, first kind of want to just go over with everyone the details of how this ban is going to be put into effect and what you need to know for those of you who are really probably upset about TikTok being banned. So first and foremost, this is going to be right out of the article from Axios. It says that Montana Governor Greg Gianforte signed into law on this past Wednesday, the 17th, banning TikTok statewide. This will be effective as of January 1st, 2024. So this is happening after a growing number of Republican-led states had issued TikTok bans on government-issued devices after the FBI warned of possible threats to national security posed by the Chinese-owned social media platform. This was owned by a company called ByteDance. A TikTok spokesperson said in an emailed statement Wednesday evening that the ban is an infringement on the First Amendment rights of the people of Montana. Now, coming out a little bit, the government of China has also come out and said that there's no evidence that TikTok does threaten any country's national security. And TikTok CEO went before Congress in March and said that the parent company ByteDance is not an agent whatsoever of the Chinese ruling Communist Party, and that they've never given any information to China's government. But the US, the EU, and Canada, and several other nations have in recent months moved to impose bans and other restrictions on the app in relation to official government devices. Now, the Biden administration has warned TikTok that it faces a ban in the US if ByteDance, again, the parent company, does not sell its stake in the US version of the app, to which TikTok has come out recently and said that it's trying to build a server in the state of Texas that will store all of the data for those who are using TikTok within America. Now, how this is going to go into effect in the state of Montana is basically if you have the device, if you have the app already on your device, prior to the ban in January 1st, 2024, you'll be absolutely fine. As long you'll be able to access TikTok, without any issues whatsoever. The ban is going to be going into place in the effect of being able to download the app afterwards. So if you try to download the app in the state of Montana afterwards, you'll not be able to download the app. So if you have it again prior to that, you'll be just fine. But then again, also, if you're getting a new device after the date of January 1st, 2024, that new device will not be able to download TikTok. Montana is the first to go ahead and do this. Members like the ACLU have come out and said that this will probably be challenged in court. So first and foremost, I kind of want to kick this over to my co-host, John. What are your thoughts on the state of Montana banning TikTok? Was this the right move, wrong move? What do you think about it?
So I'll come up right front and say I have, for my own mental health, not followed the whole TikTok ban thing too closely because, as many of you know, I came up through TikTok. My main following is on TikTok, and the idea of it being banned keeps me up at night. So as far as like the details of this case are concerned, I'm not particularly aware of them. However, I know from a just conceptual level, when we're like taught about China and how they approach internet, we're taught that it's authoritarian, that it's against the values of free speech. They don't allow platforms like Facebook and Google, and they control what's on the Chinese internet and control what their people can see. And everyone in America pretty much looks at that and goes, yeah, that's bad. That's against our values of free speech. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're saying, oh, we can't have that Chinese company. Like, it's the same excuse the Chinese government makes to ban apps there that we're making here. So like, how are we still the beacon of free speech in this world? How are we still the ones fighting for freedom if we're taking away a public forum from the people that is the democratic will of the people to have, be using the same excuse as the governments that we criticize for doing so with apps that are made here? It seems incredibly hypocritical to me. And no, I don't think we should ban TikTok. I think that I'm biased, but that's my stance on that.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it from here. Yeah, so I disagree. all right, I actually applaud the TikTok ban on for like a multitude of reasons. For one, the fact that China has easy access into all of our data, well, any TikTok user's data, right, is a threat to national security, right? If they know, that, let's say a a senator in California takes a poop at 12 p.m. every day, they know exactly where that person is all the time, right? Or even just in general, like they shouldn't have our information, right? And I know that the US companies sell our information, and that's another issue. Okay. But in regards to TikTok, China, while they say, oh, we don't have any of your information, we've never asked for it, it's very easy for them to get because the CCP is lumped right in with the company, right? And I'm not okay with that. They ban our apps for national security reasons, right? It makes no sense why we shouldn't be doing the same. Now, in regards to other issues I have with TikTok, that's more of like a societal thing, so we don't need to get into that. But in regards to how Montana's implementing it, I find it very, very interesting, right? Because while it's not like necessarily a ban on its face, because if you already have it downloaded right on your phone, you can keep it on your phone. Well, don't get a new phone, okay? Because then it's gone. All right. So it's kind of like going to be like a phase out thing, right? Oh, do you really want that new iPhone 20, whatever number they're at now? Well, you're gonna have to lose TikTok. So it's kind of like it's an interesting thing. I'm all for it, and I hope like we do it nationally, but not with the bill that's proposed. I wish there was another way we could do it, but yeah.
So, Sock, what do you say then that it is, the principles of free speech, shouldn't that be more important than national security? Because we don't have a credible national security threat. It's not like if China were to drone strike us, that would be they could do that with or without TikTok. Like,
well,
how do you weigh that against the First Amendment?
Well, so they could do it with or without TikTok, but they could, strategically target certain areas or demographics based on the areas that they want to target based off of the information that they get from TikTok, if they really wanted to, right?
What do you mean by target?
So let's say, we'll just keep it political for whatever reason. All right. So let's say there's a mass number of people in, Bumblefuck, Nebraska.
There's not a mass number of people in Bumblefuck,
okay.
Nebraska. Nobody lives there.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking of a specific.
Omaha's a pretty big city, everyone. Let's not discount anybody who might be living in Omaha right now. Shout outs to them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like some random example that no one might get too upset about. Okay, so if it's X amount of like Republican people, right? And for whatever reason, China hates the Republicans more than the Democrats, right? Well, they can target hotbeds for, Republican areas or hotbeds for Democrat viewers or whatever, and cause, like attack certain ideologies that way. Also with their algorithm, right? They push, either right-wing narratives or left-wing narratives, right? So it's wild. Like I've gone down the right-wing TikTok pipeline. It is insane, and that's unhealthy. Like they are pushing that on us to divide us further, right? So it's not necessarily free speech or freedom of expression, right? Because they have control over the app, right? This is China's free speech in our country, right? And China's free speech into our people's, like right into their eyeballs, right into their brains, right? That are pushing them to divide us, right? Like according to right-wing TikTok, all right, that the economy was supposed to crash 2 weeks ago, right? Hasn't crashed yet. And every day it's another doomsday. And then I've gone down the left-wing pipeline too. It's doomsday. Republicans bad, racist, whatever. It's so divisive. So it's not us having free speech. It's them talking to us, in my opinion.
Chuck, we haven't heard from you yet. I want to get your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on TikTok being banned by the state of Montana?
So I feel like my response is going to be disappointing because I'm really kind of torn on the issue. And part of the reason why is I feel like this is just a band-aid for a sinking ship. So first of all, the solution proposed, at least like that's been floated around, is selling ByteDance to a US based that can be a US based company, right?
Yeah.
Because like or selling TikTok, not ByteDance. ByteDance is the Chinese equivalent. So selling it so it's a US based company, which I think ultimately is probably still going to be the most likely solution when it comes down to it, because it's already been banned on federal devices, which really doesn't affect a lot of people. Let's be real. On federal phones, if it's not really part of the business or the type of work you do as a federal employee, for the most part. What I will say is like this is part of a larger problem. The larger problem in this case is the Chinese government. And we saw this a couple of years ago when the US government banned Huawei and ZTE because they were worried that the Chinese government was going to, among other things, at least the fiber optic cables, I believe, include spyware that they could use to spy on American people or even control the networks that are running Huawei equipment, which is a real concern. I think that the problem, though, is let's go back to the selling example. You sell it to a US based company, problem goes away. No, it's just now your data is being controlled by a US based organization. Look, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is necessarily in cahoots with the Chinese Communist Party, but I also don't trust Mark Zuckerberg either with my data. I voluntarily apparently relinquish it because I still have Meta accounts. But I think that the larger problem, there's two. Let me divide it in this. One is the fact that there has been no real effort at any type of data privacy laws or really a data privacy bill of rights.
Oh, you're stealing all my talking points.
Sorry. from our federal government. Maybe it goes back to the age thing we were just talking about. I don't know. Don't want to necessarily imply that, but I think it's a real concern. And then I think the second issue is that there is a real problem with foreign governments trying to usurp the United States. China is a huge example of that, and I think that we have to be able to separate those issues because both are a real problem. I don't think that necessarily banning TikTok solves many problems, but it also causes me concern that they are, that they could be considered essentially Chinese spyware. I think that social media in general is spyware when you think about it. It like when you look at how much data is collected, I'm not given a whole lot of comfort just knowing that they're US citizens doing that, to be completely honest.
Right.
Whether or not, now I think like the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, those entities probably have more nefarious goals of what to use that data for rather than just selling it for ad revenue. But the fact of the matter remains is that this is symptomatic of a larger problem. And I just don't know that this is really a prescriptive solution that's going to address the full problem. When I look at this, I see this as a pretty easy political dunk for Greg Gianforte, the governor of Montana, to do. Again, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the idea of banning a Chinese government owned app, if that is what the situation presents itself. Again, I'm not super well read on the specifics of this, but it can be a pretty easy slam dunk considering that this has been gaining a lot of momentum in sort of more establishment Republican ideological spheres. So I don't know. I think that where I stand on this is I don't necessarily take a position on whether it's good or bad. I think ultimately, I don't think the government should necessarily be banning outright companies unless it has a rock solid case against it. What's more troubling to me is that there are underlying issues here that we are not addressing, data privacy being a humongous one that has been a problem for decades, and the fact that there needs to be a comprehensive strategy that actually looks at what we can do to protect ourselves from China and other foreign governments that try to harvest our data, because I guarantee you TikTok is not the only app that's doing that.
No, not even a little bit. And you stole part of what I was going to say. So, I should have
Forgive
went
me.
first there. I messed up. Um, yeah, this is a couple different things for me. I'll try to keep it a little short here so that we can kind of finish up with a more like a debate, I guess you would say. Because there's a lot of different avenues to this. I had people reach out to me on Instagram talking about like, hey, if this was just about restricting TikTok use for children, I might be on board with this, but because you're doing it for adults, it's a different story. I think that's a whole separate conversation. I think we should come back to that and do that another day as far as the ethicalness of maybe banning TikTok just for children. But we're talking about adults. We're talking about anybody and everyone. And I'm sure that Montana, while it's the first, it won't be the last state to do something like this. They always have like a testing ground with these things. So when they came out originally and they said that this was going to be done on government devices, I understood that to an effect, because you're saying that the Chinese government, in a way, has the ability to basically go to any company within their country and say, hey, we need this information, give us this information. And then they have to do that. They have to comply. So I was okay with banning it on government devices, but when you're banning it on anyone else's devices, that's just authoritarianism as far as I'm concerned. You are taking an authoritarian position to force what you want onto the citizens of your country or onto your state in this particular case. And nobody's asking for that here. Nobody was asking Gianforte to make that move. He just made that move. Nobody in the state was saying, oh, we need to get rid of TikTok. So it doesn't make any sense to me. It's contrary to what the Republicans claim to believe in, which I don't even know what they really believe in anymore, to be honest with you. But they claim to be the party of small government, to be not authoritarian. This is very much big government move. This is very authoritarian. And I honestly don't see it as anything other than, in a way, it's selective outrage. Because as you were saying, Chuck, this is happening in other places. I mean, Meta does this, Google does this, Microsoft does this, but we're not talking about what they're doing. We need to be raising the floor, as you were saying, on data protection for everyone across the board, all platforms. Any social media company should not be able to violate our data privacy. Instead of just targeting just TikTok, we should be raising the floor so that no American can have their data rights being breached by any social media company, no matter where they operate out of. That's just kind of where I stand on this issue.
I think that you hit the nail on the head there, Desmond, of like, if you're going to make the argument, and this is kind of what I was going to ask Sock, is if you're going to make the argument that there's data privacy breach, blah, 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 that's totally cool. All of these companies are doing it. Why only target the one from China? I don't understand treating China as an adversary by default. China's never done anything bad to me. Facebook has. I don't understand why, just because it's coming from China, it is inherently worse than something coming from America. It doesn't. They should have the same exact human rights as we think that we should have. So why should we restrict their rights to free speech just because they're Chinese?
All right. So I got a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about Russia meddling in the 2016 election?
I think it's their right to do so.
I mean, we've done it to them.
Yeah, like we've meddled in every country's election ever.
But that's just I'm sure people might feel differently than me, but I'm just like,
well,
I don't like any country meddling in any other country's elections personally.
Yeah.
So I'm against meddling.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty against other countries meddling in our election. Whether we do it to other countries or not, yeah, that's messed up. But whatever. It's not necessarily affecting our domestic politics, right? China effectively being in control of this app, right, and them setting the algorithms can influence elections. They can influence all parts of our life, right? So can Facebook. Facebook is an American company. Yes. All right. They can influence parts of our life, right? But we're talking about another government, right? On the other side of the planet that has political differences to us, right? That are trying to influence our culture to be more like them, right? So this way we're more, what's the word? We can be convinced by their politics and their way of living.
Why is that a bad thing?
Why is that a bad thing? Well, I mean, China's way of politicking and livelihood isn't necessarily that great, right?
Okay. I mean, then why can't you beat them in the free marketplace of ideas?
We can beat them in the free marketplace of ideas, but
so why do you have to ban their app? And not ours?
because they're controlling the algorithm for us. So if we create a better product, sure, but for now, it is a threat for them to pump what is going into your heads, my head, and our kids' heads, anyone's heads.
But who are you to say that their ideas are worse than our ideas?
I'm not saying that their ideas are worse. It's they're choosing what ideas to push to certain people, right?
We're doing that too with Facebook, though. So why is it okay for Facebook to do it, but not TikTok?
Facebook has American interests in mind, right?
I don't agree with that. They have Facebook's interest in mind.
Facebook being an American company would want America to continue to succeed. Yes.
And China, being America's #1 trade partner, would want America to continue to succeed.
No, they want us to bend the knee to them.
We
We
want
don't
them
really
to bend the
know.
knee to us.
We don't really know what China wants or what Facebook wants. I mean, this might be a conversation that we're not going to be able to figure out at the end of this one. But, I don't know that anyone can definitively say this is what Facebook wants. This is what China wants. This is what they're trying to do. This is what they're not trying to do. But you are speaking to a larger thing here, which unfortunately we're not going to be able to come to a culmination on here in this segment, which is there is a problem with how social media apps in general are able to essentially put out their programming, through algorithms, through what they're able to show to people. And that's something that I think we should probably all be having a closer look at in the future across the entire board with any social media app. And it's, again, going back to the issue of data privacy and I guess social media management altogether.